So, what is autophagy and how does it promote healing? Who would have guessed that one of your body's most powerful healing tools is basically to eat itself for lunch? So bizarre, but it's true. That's the way it works. There's a process that we call autophagy, which mainly means phagy is eating and auto is self. And it's basically a process that allows the body to gobble up old and damaged and defective cells and not just eliminate them, like throw them out, destroy them, whatever, but actually use them as fuel. What an amazing process we have. And autophagy is stimulated between meals. And there's a specific timing of meals. And we're going to get into that today of how you can optimize your access to this powerful, powerful healing tool. So let's get started. I'm Dr. Rita Marie Loscalzo, and I'm super excited to talk to you today about how you can understand and then use this process of autophagy for powerful healing. Welcome back to the channel where we offer you strategies that are backed by science to give you the tools that you need to get your hormones in balance, to get your body in balance, to activate your healing processes, and to be in the best health possible. We also educate health and wellness practitioners on how to use these science-based processes to help get best results they can with their clients. So, let's just go. So, as an introduction, you may have heard the term autophagy before. It might be totally unfamiliar to you. You might have also heard of the term apoptosis. If you're a health practitioner, you've definitely heard of apoptosis. And that's basically programmed cell death. When a cell gets to the end of its useful life, it bingo, it self-destroys. And that apoptosis process is super important to prevent us from having all these cells that are no longer useful, but they're there taking up space. And then that's what leads to lots of disease. But autophagy is actually different. Autophagy is the process of identifying cells that are damaged or defective. Some of them are cancer cells, and actually marking them and using this enzyme process in the body to gobble them up and use whatever's useful still in there as fuel. Pretty cool, eh? We eat ourselves for lunch to heal and to fuel ourselves. So let's talk about some of the processes here. So, how do we activate autophagy? Well, it starts during fasting. It starts when we've waited anywhere from 16 to 18 hours. You'll see in the literature, some say 16, 17, 18. So somewhere in that range of fasting, of not eating anything, puts the body into a state of autophagy. And it generally maximizes at right around 3 days of fasting. And you might be thinking, whoa, I have to stop eating to let my body eat the damaged cells. Yes and no. And I'm going to share with you some other processes and other ways that you can activate autophagy. So, how do you know if you're in autophagy? How do you know if it's activated? Well, if you're past that 16 to 18 hours and you measure both your glucose and your ketones, and you need to get the glucose in the standard international measure, which is basically if you use the US measure, you divide it by 18. And the ratio of ketones, blood ketones, not urine ketones, but the ratio of ketones to blood sugar will give you an indication if you're in autophagy. As soon as your ketone number is higher than your blood sugar number, guess what? You're in autophagy. That state maximizes when the ketones are at least double the rate, the number of the blood sugar. And I've been in that state many times because I've done many 5-day fasts. For some people, that happens right around 3 days in. For some people, after you get keto adapted and have done a lot of fasting, it can happen much sooner. So when you can measure those, I've even gotten into autophagy as early as 16 hours, or really high autophagy as early as 16 hours into a fast. So it's really a matter of how well your body is adapted. So there's other ways that you would know that you're into or heading towards autophagy is when the ketone levels start to go up. But really the ratio of the two is important. Now, the other thing you might notice as you head into autophagy is as you were fasting, as you were not eating, as your longer time between your meal, that you get hungrier and hungrier. And all of a sudden you get less hungry and you go, wait a minute, I didn't eat, but I'm not as hungry as I was before. Right. Some people get a little bit tired. Some people start to have the ketone type breath, the acetone type breath. These are not all, the best indicators, but some of these might hint at that your fact that you're getting more into ketosis and your body's getting into autophagy. You may notice some weight loss, right? If you've been in there a couple of days, you might also notice that your brain functions improved. You may have been feeling like, oh, I need to eat. It's been a long time. And then all of a sudden, like your brain gets clear. When you're running on ketones and you're favoring that over glucose, you're in the state of autophagy most likely. So, why is autophagy so important? Well, there's a number of things. It's critical for inflammation control, right? When we get into inflammation control, and there's process the NRF2 pathways, and they activate when you're in autophagy. And then we can eliminate some of the problems that happen when there's inflammation, when there's poor mitochondrial function. Actually, autophagy helps to improve the function of your mitochondria. And those are the powerhouses of every cell that you have in your body. They produce ATP to give you energy. So, why go into autophagy? Here's one of the reasons, right? You're getting into a state where your mitochondria are better and you start to produce more energy. Early stages, as you're shifting from glucose metabolism into ketone metabolism, you may feel less energy, but that's short lived. A lot of people who do more extended type fasting, like beyond the 24 hours, they go into the second and third day. We find that the second and third days are a little bit wonky because we haven't gotten into maximum autophagy. And then by the fourth day, and some people by the afternoon of the second part of the third day, like all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I feel this like sense of clarity and energy. It's really cool. Another thing that I've learned about autophagy by studying the science is that it can protect the bronchioles, right? The lungs, the lining of the lungs, and it can protect the lining of the lungs from damage and from necrosis, from all kinds of things, right? Lots of things damage the lungs. Cigarette smoke, exposure to secondhand smoke, exposure to third-hand smoke, which is the smoke in somebody's couch, when it absorbs and you're visiting them, even though they're not smoking in front of you, and then other kinds of toxins that damage the lungs. So, this is good stuff, but what do you do if fasting is not an option for you? Long term fasting, like, yeah, you can fast 12 hours between dinner and breakfast, and sometimes you've made it to 13, 14, or 15, but getting to 16 or more seems like a monumentous approach. Plus, maybe you have some health conditions that don't allow you to fast. Well, there's an option, and we call it fasting while feasting. Dr. Valto Longo did a whole book on it, and he did a lot of research to call it, he calls it the fasting mimicking diet. And what he found was when you can take and eat a certain ratio of carbohydrates, fats, and protein. He did it with all plant-based, no animal proteins in there. And it's a certain ratio and lower carb, lower to moderate protein, and a little bit higher on the fats, but not like super high like a lot of ketogenic diet proponents are saying. And so when you do that, after a certain time, you get into a state where your body is acting as if it's fasting. And so I looked at that and I said, okay, how can we do this? How can we help people to be able to eat good meals, feel satiated, and get into the benefits of fasting? So I created a program I called Fasting While Feasting. It's really a diet. We did it as a free challenge. We've done it a number of times and gotten great results. So when you do that, you get into autophagy even though you're eating. So there's a certain number of calories in the ratios that you eat on the first day. Then it goes lower on the second, third, and fourth and fifth day. And what we found is that by day 5, people had high levels of ketones, low levels of blood sugar, and they were in that maximum autophagy ratio that I talked to you about before. Now, some people it takes longer, and some people it takes doing it a few times because they tend to have problems with keto adapting too quickly. And some of that's genetically programmed. Some of it has to do with other health conditions that they have in. So, my aim for you is to learn how to maximize autophagy. So if you like fasting, you can do a 2, 3, 5 day fast every so often, maybe a few times a year. You can do a 17 to 18-hour fast a couple of times a week. Or you can go in and do this fasting while feasting, where you get the benefits of fasting and the autophagy benefits of fasting without having to stop eating at all. So I'll put the link in the chat if you want to check that out in the comments section and the chat, whatever. The comments will have the link to where you can find out more about fasting. So we have this really cool booklet, and it's called it's the many faces of fasting. And in there, I talk a lot about autophagy. So I'd highly recommend that you look at that. And I'll put the link. It's free, totally free. It's a little bit long and a little bit detailed. So if you like the science, if you're a health practitioner or just someone who likes to learn the science, you can go ahead and get that. And it's at reinventhealthcare.com/fasting. So it's something we gave away as part of our metabolic series on our podcast, Reinvent Healthcare. So I would highly recommend that you download that and read it if you're interested in learning more about autophagy. Stay tuned here because we're going to do a series of emails or series of videos on autophagy. And this is just the first so far. We've done a couple of them on fasting. You're welcome to watch those. But this channel is going to blossom with lots of videos on fasting and autophagy and ketogenic type plant-based diets and hormone balance and all sorts of great stuff. So keep an eye on the videos here and subscribe to the channel. Highly recommend that, and download this free thing. And check out Fasting While Feasting. You can just do a Google search and say Fasting While Feasting, Dr. Rita Marie, and you'll find out more about that. All right. So if you have comments, if you have questions, if this is new to you and you're not sure, or if it's not new to you and you're questioning where some of this information comes from, go ahead and comment. We'd like to hear from you. I'd like to create a conversation so that you are asking the right questions about how you can maximize your healing potential. So this is Dr. Rita Marie signing off. And until next time, be healthy and shine.